Hi, everyone. This is Phil Sherman, Senior Retirement Plan Consultant with Deschutes Investment Consulting. And I'm excited to share with you today, hot off the presses, the new IRS limits for 2025 related to retirement plans. Now, I know for those of you who keep an eye on this stuff, you're aware that generally each year we may see a slight increase in the normal deferral amount or some changes with the catch-up amount. But this year in 2025, there's actually a new exciting provision that's taking place as part of S.E.C.U.R.E Act 2.0. You may have heard of this. It's referred to as the super catch-up, and it applies to a specific group of retirement plan savers. And the rule, while it is kind of exciting, it does have some complexity to it. So we wanted to tackle this today and make sure everybody has the education information they need to make the right choices for themselves in 2025. All right, so let's start and lay the groundwork and remind everybody of where we are here in 2024. So wanted to start with the limits that we have in 2024. So again, 401k, 403b, 457, whatever your type of plan is, these numbers should look pretty familiar, right? So everybody's deferral limit this year is 23,000, and then anybody who's age 50 or older is eligible for a catch-up amount of 7,500, right? And again, I think it's really important to call this piece out. It's when the IRS assigns these catch-up provisions, they're looking at your age at the end of the year. So sometimes I talk to savers in the plan and they say, Phil, I'm 49. I have a December birthday. Does this apply to me, or do I have to wait to start saving for the catch-up until I actually turn 50? The way the IRS looks at it is they know that there's folks that have birthdays later in the year, and so they grant that provision to everybody. So if you turn 50 in the calendar year, you are eligible for the catch-up. You don't have to wait till you actually turn 50. So one thing I'll call out, because we'll look at it on the next slide, is you'll see I have two other extra groups that we might not normally talk about, right? So those ages 60 to 63 and then 64 and over. So nothing really going on with those age groups today, but as we fast forward into 2025, you'll see that there's a couple changes that take place. So this is related to that super catch-up provision that came out as part of S.E.C.U.R.E Act 2.0. So let's start with the basic stuff. So the deferral limit for everybody, that standard deferral limit of your Roth or your pre-tax contributions, is going to go up by $500 in 2025. So you'll see we were at 23,000. We jumped up $500 to 23,500. So you'll see that applies to everyone. Now, where the real differences start to take place is in that catch-up amount. So again, I'm going to call out these three different age groups. So 50 to 59, your catch-up amount is going to stay the same. IRS left this limit the same at 7,500. So your total change has only gone up by $500, which was the deferral limit increase from 23,000 to 23,500. Same for those who are 64 and older, but then we have our special group, those who turn 60 or through 63 in 2025. So if you're 59 right now in 2024 and you'll turn 60 in 2025, again, at any point, this applies to you up through anybody who will be age 63 on December 31st, 2025. So if you're 63 at the start of the year, but you'll turn 64, unfortunately, this provision does not apply to you, and you fall into that last group. So what's the deal with the change here? So the super catch-up states that those in that 60 to 63 age group get to increase their catch-up amount by 150% of the normal catch-up amount for everybody else. So you'll see that for this group, they get that extra $500, but then they get the also additional increase from 7,500 up to the higher $11,250. So their total change is actually an extra $4,250 in 2025. So that's the big change for 2025. It's just for that one specific group of individuals. I get it. It's kind of a funky age group that's being called out here. But if you're in this camp or you're approaching it, I really want everybody to be aware of this piece here. So you may be asking yourself, okay, Phil, well, what about IRAs? Were there any changes related to this kind of catch-up rule stuff on IRAs? Do we get extra amounts if we're in this age group? Anything like that? Actually, oddly enough, We saw no limit changes whatsoever from 2024 to 2025 on traditional or Roth IRAs. So those amounts are going to stay 7,000. The catch-up amount is going to stay 1,000. And then this kind of super catch-up, this special 60 to 63-year-old age group, no special privileges on the IRAs. So standard operating procedures here, no changes whatsoever from 24 to 25 for IRAs. Now, you may have also heard about this required Roth catch-up. So there's a big Wall Street Journal article on this earlier this year. It's been talked about in the news quite a bit. And so I want to call special attention to this. So this does not technically take place until 2026, but I am getting questions from folks. So in the spirit of overeducation, we're going to jump out in front of this one. So starting in 2026, if your wages are higher than $145,000, any catch-up contributions you make will have to be done on after-tax basis to a designated Roth account. So you don't get that normal tax deduction that you would if you save this into the pre-tax bucket. So big change on that. I know that saving this into this catch-up money into that pre-tax bucket's usually pretty helpful for those who are 50 or older. They're going to potentially take this away depending upon your income. Now, the good news is this doesn't apply to your regular employee deferrals. So like if this was 2025 when this went live, that 23,500, that amount you still have total control over. So you still can do pre-tax, you can still do Roth, whatever you prefer on those dollars. It's just that extra bucket, so that 7,500 or that 11,250, that's where you would be required if your income was above that threshold to defer that money into the Roth bucket on your catch-up. Now, again, this is just for 2026, but I'm hearing, a lot of talk around this, so we just wanted to kind of get out in front of it. So what if you make less than that amount? Nothing changes. You still have the total control to choose where you defer. Do you want to do that regular pre-tax? Do you want to do that Roth? You have total control over what you do with those dollars. But for those who make above that amount, that choice is taken away, and those catch-up dollars will be required to go into that Roth bucket. Now, the good news is, you do still get that Roth privilege. So if you meet the 5-year rule and have the money in the account and follow all the IRS guidelines, you do get to pull those dollars out tax-free in those earnings in retirement. But that choice is kind of taken away as part of this provision in the S.E.C.U.R.E Act 2.0. Now, one little note on that $145,000. We do expect this amount to be indexed for inflation. So S.E.C.U.R.E Act 2.0 was written a number of years ago. They haven't updated these limits or anything since then. So fingers crossed, we do potentially expect this amount to increase when it's released in 2026. So just kind of putting that out there to keep this on everybody's radar. Now, I want to put together a little bit of additional information on this. This is kind of a complex topic. I get a lot of questions on it. So, what income is being used to determine this rule? Well, they're going to look at your prior year income, right? So for 2026, when this goes into effect, they're going to be looking at the income you earned in 2025 to determine if you're this high earner group that this rule will apply to. I get it. People change jobs, right? So if they're going to look, if the plan is going to be looking at my income from the prior year, but I didn't work for the company then, or I joined mid-year or something like that. What about that case? Well, if you're new to your company and they don't have on file that you earned in their payroll system above 145,000 or whatever the income threshold is, then you would be exempt because there's no way to validate that information from the plan sponsor's place, right? So if you start a new job or you took a break and your income dropped or something like that, it wouldn't apply to you. Another question I hear a lot from folks is, if I'm required to do this 1 year, am I locked in essentially for life? No, this is reviewed on an annual basis. So I see this a lot from folks who maybe are like in sales or who have to take time off from work for health reasons or family reasons or whatever the case may be. So this is reviewed on an annual basis. So if I'm above 1 year, but then I maybe don't have a great sales year the next and I fall back down, I can jump back and forth between whether or not this rule is applied to me or not. So again, don't be too worried about this required Roth catch-up piece. It's coming in 2026, but I'm having people ask me some questions about it. So again, in the spirit of overeducating, I just wanted to throw some information at folks so that you got some idea of what's kind of out there. So tons of great information out there. A quick Google search will get you a bunch of great information on these provisions. The IRS has put out some really great information. Wall Street Journal has some really great articles. But again, here at Deschutes, we want to be a resource for you. So if you have specific questions on how this impacts you, your spouse, your partner, your kind of family financial dynamics, and you want to have some kind of a one-on-one consultation about this, give me a call, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to walk through this with you. Again, I get it's a little bit of a dense topic, so we want to give you a bunch of information on this. I expect we'll be doing multiple educations around this. We'll be bombarding people with updated limits, talking about it as we come on site or do video presentations for folks. So if you don't feel like you quite have it grasped yet today, don't worry. We've got a lot of time to get through this, and just know that we're here to help over at Deschutes. So thanks, everybody. Happy November, and I hope that your year ends on a really positive note. So thanks, everyone.